Okay. Hello, pressed recording button. Been a while. Um, Somehow nothing has changed for Fury Warrior since the last videos I made. Not really sure how that happens, but since then, people in Skyhold were talking about how like Fury's actually boring. They were jumping on the bandwagon. And I felt inspired one day, so I made my own talent tree. There's a disclaimer here that basically says this was just done for fun. That is true. I did not do this with the intention of like passing it off to fucking Blizzard Informant or something like that. This was just for fun. A lot of the ideas were pulled from like previous iterations of Warrior, tier sets, Azerite traits, shit like that. Some Legion artifact traits as well. Some of them were pulled from like other classes, and everything that was pulled from that stuff was basically just like tuned up to more reasonable numbers or tuned down to more reasonable numbers to like match the current design philosophy. I did it as best I could anyways. Tuning is probably still like fucked. There's some stuff in here that's like really broken. And that was sort of by design. I kind of just tried to make everything fun. As you can see, big ass tree. I added some nodes. This is probably going to take a while. Just gonna like go through every single talent node individually and like talk about them and where I drew inspiration from. We're gonna start like here and then go down here and then down here and then here and then here and then we'll do the middle because the middle is like contextualized by this side and this side. So doing the middle without doing all of this shit first is like it feels weird. So I'm also gonna block this off so that you can't see because no spoilers allowed here. I think that's kind of all I wanted to say. If you're new or some shit, my name is Zentega. I'm a warrior main. Been a warrior main for like 10 years. So I like know a little bit of what I'm talking about, but not a lot. I also moderate for Skyhold. Um, I'm gonna put a link to this in the description. It's like a published link, I think. So like you should be able to mess around with it and edit it. Like on your own copy, of course, not the main one. If you want to do that. If you prefer to just do that and not listen to me yap for like an hour and a half or whatever this is gonna end up being, that's fine. Go for it. I don't really care. Anyways, let's get started. Oh, I also added a change log, so if I like come up with anything else or like decide to change something and you feel invested in this, then you can just go look at that. And I'm trying to be better at like keeping a good log of it, but like prior to what is this? November 24th. I didn't log anything. And there was a lot of changes prior to that. So but that's like unimportant. I'll probably just talk about that while I'm talking about the nodes. Anyways, there's just like a little legend here. If like this is the same legend that Blizzard uses in game. So like I think it's these like rounded square things are actives, circles are passives, and then octagons are choice nodes. It's the same stuff that Blizzard uses in game. I just thought it was good, so I kept it. First thing, Bloodthirst. It's baseline as Fury. I genuinely I have no idea why this isn't baseline or why Bloodthirst isn't baseline. Like I'm pretty sure like no other class has to like pay a talent point for like their core ability. It's just kind of Fury and Arms. I'm sure there's some others too, but like the argument can be made for them as well. So yeah, it just goes Raging Blow into Rampage into Enrage Regen. And then some of this stuff hasn't really changed. Like some of it I think is like okay. It just needs like some tweaking. So then you go from Rampage into Frenzied Enrage, and I just bumped it up from 15% to 20%, and movement speed up from I think it's 10% now, and I bumped it up to 15%. It's sort of irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. It's just a nice little bonus. But the reason I bumped this up is because currently Powerful Enrage can beat out Frenzied Enrage in single target, and I don't think that should be the case because Powerful Enrage is just always better in AoE for the burst damage. So I think setting those two apart is a little bit better. This is just like a tuning thing that they could do whenever, but they haven't. Moving on. Focus and Chaos stays the same. It's fine. Fresh Meat. Bloodthirst has 15% increased critical strike chance, tripled against enemies above 80% health. This is basically the Legion fresh meat. It's a little bit different because it has value all the time instead of just above 85%. I did add some like Bloodthirst crit synergy, so like this does have value. Currently it just sucks, so yeah, might as well make it good. Improved Bloodthirst. Bloodthirst has 2 charges. Cooldown increased by 1.5 seconds, so you're getting, double the amount of Bloodthirsts, or you're getting, 2 instead of 1, and a 50% increase on cooldown. The intention of this talent was just to, like, make it so that you never have to press slam in single target, or, like, whirlwind for filler. That, like, unless you get really, really unlucky, or play poorly, I should say, then you should never press, like, a true filler ability on, like, any content, except for if you mean to, or intend to. Because I think it's really shit designed that we have a filler that just actually does nothing. Like, the fact that you press slam at any point in time, and it does not generate rage, and it does shit damage, and it doesn't spend rage, like, it's bad. It is bad fucking design. Warpaint Interfury, or Invigorating Fury, it's just, we have 2 talent points that basically, one's useless, and the other's, like, really good. It just makes more sense to me to be in a choice node. I see no point in having this be 2 different things. Improve Raging Blow. It's the same as it always is. Then Cruelty. This is another change. While enraged, Raging Blow deals 15% increased critical strike damage. You'll notice, like, a really big philosophy I had with this tree was, like, adding more crit synergy, because that's, like, traditionally been, like, a really big warrior thing, and I think we should sort of go back to it because it's cool and interesting, and it makes our stat choices varied, and it gives you, like, one extra layer of depth, right? So, like, you can have crit interact with different things, and you can have those different things interact with each other. Hack and Slash. Rampage refunds a charge of Raging Blow all the time. Not 25% chance per strike, just all the fucking time. I cannot tell you, and dude, I swear to God, doing Mythic Ansarek radicalized me, because there were so many pulls where I pressed Raging Blow twice, I pressed Bloodthirst, didn't have enough rage to rampage, or like I rampaged, and got 0 fucking Raging Blow charges back. It is just, it's absolutely insane that we have to rely on RNG, even if it's like very slim chance. I think it's like 12% or something, that you don't get a charge back. But goddamn, when that 12% happens, man, oh my god, it makes my blood boil. So yeah, just always refunds a charge, makes it consistent, reliable, you can play around it. That's just good to me, in my opinion. And I made a choice node because of a talent further down that we'll get to in, like, I don't know, a little bit. Rampage reduces the remaining cooldown Crushing Blow by 2 seconds. We'll get to that. I'll probably come back to this then. And this is a doozy. This is a big one. You're probably gonna cringe when you read this, but just know I did design around this talent. This is like a really big part of what I think would be fun. Improved Execute. Execute costs 40 rage and deals 25% increased damage. I think a really big issue with Fury right now is that you care too much about Rampage and too little about other abilities. Not that caring about Rampage is bad, but you should care about other buttons beyond just, I need to press this so I can get to Rampage. And while it's true that with Reckless Abandon, you do care about Crushing Blow and Bloodbath more, I also think that talent kind of sucks in design. Because you should care about your spender more than you care about overcapping. Right? So, or that is to say, you shouldn't be overcapping fucking 3000 rage per encounter. Alright? So, extra rage spender, this does get compensated elsewhere. Like, I am not doing this, like, willy-nilly, I fucking want Legion nostalgia, none of that bullshit. I did, in fact, like, take into account that this probably needs to be balanced around and designed around so that it doesn't feel like absolute dog shit, and you're not stuck in the same point where the only thing you care about is execute, sub you know, 35, 20%. I'm not going to tell you which one it is because I did change that as well. But yeah, I don't think that focusing entirely, like your rotation entirely into one button is a good idea. I don't think it's healthy for design. All right, let's go to the tier 2. So you have the improved Bloodthirst has 2 charges. We already talked about that. Single-Minded Fury moved to the spellbook. This is a no-brainer. All right, like truly, I don't know what they're thinking having this be a talent, but yeah, it's just occupying design space. Cold Steel Hot Blood, the exact same. Just buff the damage. You know, 50%, almost double. Anything in between, fine by me. That button is piss. Or that passive is piss. It does nothing. I checked one of my breakdowns in a key. Several of them. It is ranging from 2 to 3%. It is real bad. It is like, yeah, it stinks. It is really fucking bad, and it should probably get buffed a little bit. Vicious Contempt, the exact same, just not a 2-point node. Or not the exact same. Bloodthirst deals 50% increased damage to enemies below 20% HP. Basically, you're trading the health percent for the 1 point. So rather than have it be 35%, it's now 20%, and to compensate for that, you only have to pay 1 talent point. Pretty straightforward. Blood Surge, your Gushing Wounds, which is the dot applied by Cold Steel Hot Blood, have a 20% chance to generate 5 rage each time they deal damage. Just some cool rage economy funnel shit. I had an idea similar to this during the beta cycle when Fury still had access to Rend. I thought it would be cool for, you know, Blizzard to give Fury Blood Surge with Rend, and you could funnel rampages. I thought that was cool. They didn't go ahead with it. They didn't like the idea of Fury having 2 spenders, which, I mean, sure, that's fine. Rend is like pretty uninteresting as a spell. It's just direct damage, maintenance buff. So yeah, but I like the idea behind it, so I slapped it in there. Oathblood. This is a Legion artifact trait from the Broken Shore. Bloodthirst has a 15% chance to trigger another Bloodthirst. In my mind, this behaves as if you casted it twice. So any benefit that you would get from casting Bloodthirst twice this benefits that, right? Critical strikes with your Bloodthirst against your main target refund a charge of Bloodthirst. This is like basically doubling down on the idea that you should never be pressing fillers unless if you absolutely like need to or want to. Sorry about that. Yeah, I do not like the idea of Fury pressing Whirlwind or Slam in single target. That is bad and just shouldn't exist. Trauma. This is an arms talent from Legion that I thought like fit well, so I yoinked it. Rampage and Execute cause the target to bleed for 10% additional damage over 6 seconds, and it ignites. Multiple uses accumulate increased damage. This is just like a 10% sustain increase. It also has synergy further down in the tree. We'll get to that, obviously. But yeah, this is like on single target and AoE. This is basically just 10% sustain damage all the time on your, you know, hardest hitting abilities. Not that complicated. All right, move over here. We'll start with Wrath and Fury. This is probably like, I'm still not super happy with this, but I think it's like a solid design. This is the Tomb of Sargeras Fury tier set, but put into a talent point. Bloodthirst increases the next damage of your next Raging Blow or Crushing Blow by 15% or 30%, depending on how many points, for 15 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Stacking up to 5 times is basically just insurance. It's taking into account, you know, the fact that you have 2 Bloodthirst, the fact that you can proc Oathblood. So you're not intended to press Bloodthirst 5 times before your next Raging Blow or Crushing Blow. We'll get to that. But it's basically just there to make sure that you don't like munch or overcap or anything like that before your next one. And then conversely, Raging Blow or Crushing Blow increase the damage of your next Bloodthirst by 10% or 20% for 15 seconds, stacking 5 times. The reason it was 5 times for Raging Blow and Crushing Blow is just because, you know, resets. Generally speaking, you press Raging Blow a lot more than you press Bloodthirst, but they're about equal. There's obviously a lot of Bloodthirst synergy, even just on the left side of the tree. So I made the benefit from buffing Raging Blow and Crushing Blow better than the benefit for buffing Bloodthirst, because you're already highly incentivized to press Bloodthirst. That was, yeah, my thought process. The idea to make it 2, initially I had this as a 1-pointer, but Box and Skyhold suggested that I should make it 2-pointer. I kind of agree. I don't love the idea of 2-point nodes, but I think having this just be like 30% and 20% is probably too strong. So, Old Improved Whirlwind, move to the spellbook. Why do we have to talent this fucking thing, man? Yeah, I don't know. So, it's real stupid to me that that it actually occupies a talent point. I kind of get the perspective that, like, Fury's already at a really low percentage loss from swapping full single target to full AoE. I get it. But also, like, I think it's just taking up design space. Like, you're never taking Improved Whirlwind and not Meat Cleaver, so why have Improved Whirlwind? Like, if there was a situation where you took only the 2 cleaves, I would get it. But anyways, Improved Whirlwind. Whirlwind and Thunderclap deal 25% increased damage. I'm going to change that wording later. And cause your next 4 single target attacks to strike up to 4 additional enemies for 65% damage. Whirlwind generates 3 rage plus an additional 1 per target hit, maximum 8 rage. This is just current Meat Cleaver, but I buffed the damage by 15%. Or 10%? I can't remember. But our sustained damage sucks. It's real bad. Unless if you're playing Thane. And then it's not because of, like, pressing buttons, it's because Thunder Blast does a lot of damage. So, yeah, buff that up a bit. And then this will get some people very excited. Meat Cleaver, Whirlwind and Thunderclap deal 25% more damage and cause your next 4 single target attacks to strike up to 7 additional targets for 35% increased damage. Whirlwind generates 3 rage plus an additional 1 per target hit, maximum 11. I think this applies to Thunderclap too in current WoW, but I can't remember. But just assume that everything that says Whirlwind, just assume it's also Thunderclap for Thane purposes. Sorry, throat's dry. Yeah, people have been, like, asking for a way to, like, uncap, in quotes, Fury for a long time. I think they should just make it a choice node, you know? You have the option to do low target cleave at very high damage or high target cleave at very low damage. I think that's a good trade-off. I think it provides interesting choice. Some very smart people pointed out to me that 35 times 7 is less than 65 times 4. However, that does not account for the fact that any target cleaved by Meat Cleaver also gets the bleeds cleaved to them. And, you know, more targets hit by bleeds consistently is more damage. If I bump this up to 40%, or say bump this down to 60%, I think it defeats the design intent. And, yeah. So, don't worry, numbers were thought about. Basic math does not stop me. Alright, moving down to the last half. Valorjar Berserker. This is literally just the Legion Legendary Valorjar Berserkers, but I removed the S because it's not a pair of pants. You are the Valorjar Berserker. Rampage critical strikes against your primary target generate 6 rage. You're going to notice there is kind of a shitload of rage gen in this talent tree. It's for a reason, okay? I, like, infamously do not like the Recklessness talent. I think it's bad, and I changed it a lot. And I compensated that by giving us a lot more rage gen. So, Crushing Blow. Here we are. Replaces Raging Blow. 10-second cooldown. Crushing Blow deals 225% of attack power plus 225% of attack power physical damage. Can't reset its own cooldown. That is the reason for this. The Rampage reduces the remaining cooldown Crushing Blow by 2 seconds. So basically, like, I think completely removing all aspects of Reckless Abandon, spoiler, I removed Reckless Abandon because I think that talent sucks, is like kind of, I think that's bad. I think Crushing Blow is cool enough that it should be its own thing. This is like low-key Onslaught. This is basically Onslaught, but better. And it also gives you this mini game of like pressing Rampage a lot to get the cooldown lower so you can press it more and, you know, shit like that. So yeah, notably, you're gonna like be getting less benefit from Wrath and Fury, so maybe you don't want to take that talent anymore. That's possible. I don't really know because I can't play test it because this is just a fucking, you know, flow chart that I made on draw.io. So Wrecking Ball. This is inspired by a Legion talent by the same name, although it worked differently. I think it was procs per minute instead, but this is a percent chance. Casting Raging Blow or Crushing Blow has a 12% chance to make your next Whirlwind deal 350% increased damage, or your next Thunderclap deal 75% increased damage. This is just like sustained AoE dopamine, pretty much. That's about it. Initially, this was 20%, but I think it shouldn't be super often because you're going to be pressing, you know, buttons a lot. This number probably could be higher for Crushing Blow. I haven't ironed out all of the kinks with Crushing Blow yet, but I'll continue to think about that. We'll see. Sorry. Anyways, that's both of the side trees now. We can get into the middle of the tree. This is probably the part that I'm most proud of. Certainly the part of the tree that most of my effort went into making. This was inspired by, or like I got motivated by a message that Box sent in Skyhold, where he basically said he wanted Slaughtering Strikes to like essentially be a secondary resource. At first I thought that was kind of stupid because it's completely passive and you don't play around it, and anyways, I misunderstood, or I was quick to dismiss what he said. There is obviously a way to make it do that, and I made it do that. So, yeah, let's get into it. I thought it ended up being a pretty cool idea. I'd be happy to hear your thoughts on it. This like center nest of talents is like easily the most interesting part of this tree to me. So let's fucking get into it. We'll do like one talent at a time. Well, we've been doing that, but whatever. You know what I mean. Slaughtering Strikes. Your Bloodthirst grants 1 stack of Slaughtering Strikes, and Rampage grants 2 stacks of Slaughtering Strikes. Each stack increases the damage of your next execute by 8% per stack, maximum of 40 stacks. There's a lot of text in that bubble. You'll notice I removed Sudden Death. That is because this is basically replacing it. Alright, so 8% per stack, maximum of 40 stacks. It's a big number if you get to max stacks, but you're not intended to get to max stacks, really. So, let's carry on. We'll go to Massacre. Your Execute Critical Strikes cause your next Rampage to have 30% increased critical strike chance and deal 15% increased damage. Actually, you know what? Maybe we should just look at the whole suite at once. Sudden Death. Every 30th Slaughtering Strike makes your next execute usable on any target regardless of their health and refund all rage spent. You'll notice the language isn't make it free, it's refund all rage spent. So you still have to spend the 40 rage, but you get that rage back. Alright? And that's like, well, first of all, people are going to be thinking anger management. And when I made this, I made it with anger management in mind. But I ended up moving away from anger management, and you'll see it synergizes still. I still have that like anger management, spend as much rage as possible minigame, but it's a little bit different. Ashen Juggernaut. Execute increases the critical strike chance and critical strike damage of execute by 5% for 15 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. Oh, also this. So, 30, obviously, 8%. It's a big fucking execute every 30 slaughtering strikes. I can't remember the amount of damage. It's 240% damage execute is what you're looking at. Now, obviously, there's a lot of synergy here. We'll scroll down a little bit. Corpses for the pile. After we've done all these talents, I'll talk about it as a whole, because you kind of need like the entire picture to like have it explained, or like to understand it all and how it like works together. And yeah, when Massacre is consumed, gain an additional 4 slaughtering strike stacks and refund 50% of the damage of the rage spent on Rampage. So whenever you consume this, you get 4 extra stacks, and you refund 50% of the rage spent on Rampage, which is 40 rage, which is also coincidentally the amount of rage required to press Rampage or to press execute. So I'm sure you're starting to see some synergies here. Rampage and execute increase your haste by 3% for 12 seconds. Additional stacks do not refresh duration. This is basically Star-Lord without the 3 stack cap. And it's basically intended to make your execute phase fucking sick. Additionally, there's singular focus. This is basically just quality of life. Execute critical strikes, grant and rage. This is like, it's basically an overkill talent. It's to guarantee that you never run out of rage or enrage. So let's talk about all of this together. So first of all, you have execute that costs 40 rage. You have sudden death that makes it free and refunds the rage, or not makes it free, but you know what I mean. Notably, Massacre, not 35% threshold anymore. The idea was basically make everything extremely consistent. That was like a very core design philosophy for this. There is still some RNG, right? Like Bloodthirst having a 50% chance to trigger another one. That'll feed into slaughtering strikes, and you might have some variance and shit like that. But the idea was to make everything very consistent across the board, so that there's like really no variance in like when you start your execute phase, or like how many sudden death procs you're getting and shit like that. Also, Massacre was kind of just it still is a just horrible talent for like all of Dragonflight. It was like a 0.1% DPS loss to just not talented at all. Like, not replacing it for anything. Just straight up no talent versus Massacre. 0.1% DPS loss. Horrible, horrible, horrible talent. So I removed it. Got rid of it. It's bad. I think it stinks. And I think you open up more design space by focusing execute phase in the last 20%. Basically, you open up design a lot more to make execute a lot more potent by limiting the amount of time you have to press it. And Massacre restricted that design as well by making it so that you like had a larger execute window. It's the same principle behind Vicious Contempt. So the loop here is basically supposed to be like outside of execute, obviously you're not really doing much, right? You're just pressing Rampage. Every once in a while, you get a sudden death proc. You press execute. You get your rage back. Work towards the next thing. If you crit the execute, you get Massacre. You consume the Massacre. You get more. You get your rage back. Like, it's nice. It's a nice feedback loop, right? In execute phase, what's going to be happening, right? You're going to want to press, Rampage and execute a lot, obviously. Execute more than Rampage. The execute crits feed into Massacre, which feeds into corpses for the pile, which gives you back, 40 rage, to press execute again, to get another crit, and, I think you understand, like, what this is supposed to be. And it's the same with Frenzy, right? More haste, more casts, more fucking Massacre procs, more corpses to the pile. All this shit, you're a fucking whirling death machine. You're just fucking destroying the boss, right? That was like You're getting a shit ton of rage from Valazar Berserker. You're just going absolutely ballistic, fucking animal style on the boss. That was like when I sort of like did all of this, it took me like probably 5 hours, 6 hours of design time to like really get this to a place where I felt good about it. Initially, this singular focus was a part of improved execute. I thought that was probably a bit too much for one talent point, so I just moved it down here. On top of the fact that I didn't think I had enough talent points in the center because I removed so many 2-point nodes. So I just put it here. Corpses for the Pile and Massacre used to be the same talent node, which is fucking insane value for one talent point. So I split them into two, so you have to, commit 2 talents. And yeah, I think this is a much more interesting design for Frenzy than what we currently have. Encouraging us to never target swap is really cringe. I think that's bad. I think this is more interesting. It does offer less consistency in terms of your haste, which might like fuck with people a little bit, but I think it I think it offers enough just based on the merit of pressing execute and rampage a lot in execute phase for it to stay the way it is. Obviously I can't play test any of this, right? So I just kind of have to think about it. And maybe this 3% number is off. Maybe it should be like 1% or 2%, or maybe it should have a stat cap or shit like this. But conceptually, I think that encouraging this like sort of feedback loop of lots of execute, lots of rampage. You still have uses for other buttons, right? Like obviously Vicious Contempt, Bloodthirst deals 50% to enemies below 20%. At some point, you're going to want to work that in. And additionally, you still need to build up to the amount of rage required for Rampage, because you still want to press Rampage for the 30% increased critical strike chance and damage. Also, Rampage critical strike chance. Rampage critical strikes generate rage. Like, all of this is designed to work in union to make you feel like a Fury Warrior instead of what we have now, which is more like a furry warrior. Like you're basically just a fucking cat cosplaying as a dude with swords. I think current Fury is just, it's just not really anywhere close to furious enough, in my opinion. So all of this is sort of designed to like make it feel like, you're this high octane fucking wrecking ball, storm of destruction, unstoppable force that doesn't care about immovable objects. And I think this does a good job of accomplishing it. This is, like I've said before, this is like this is my baby, man. There is a lot of time and effort that went into making this and making sure that it seemed cool, seemed fun, was engaging. Yeah, if if I could like wish list anything from this tree into the game, it would be this like execute suite. Execute costing 40 rage and then all of these talents. I think that would be just absolutely the most fun I could ever have playing World of Warcraft. Yeah. So fucking love this shit. Let's get into the CD. This is a very unpopular this is probably going to be a very unpopular opinion. I think that the 100% rage gen from Recklessness is really bad. Which, I mean, I also think Recklessness as a whole is really bad, but I think it's really bad because of the rage gen. So I cut it in half. I added a bunch of other shit too. So Recklessness, go berserk, increasing all rage generation by 50%, haste by 20%, and granting you 30% increased critical strike chance for 20 seconds, 3-minute cooldown. This is not spell crit, this is crit rating. I just sort of like, I've been stewing on that idea for a little bit. I think crit rating is more interesting. It gives you more variability in terms of trinket usage and shit like that. And I also think spell crit is just kind of cringe. So, yeah. 3-minute cooldown, though. Big cooldown. A lot of people won't be fond of that. I think it's kind of interesting, especially with talents lower down in the tree. Unbridled Ferocity. Every 1600 rage spent triggers Recklessness for 6 seconds. It's this Recklessness. This one right here. So, this is your anger management rage spending loop instead of having anger management. I'm telling you right now, I changed anger management because I think it's bad, to be quite honest. Variable CDR is never fun. That is my take. I think it stinks. So there's still, you know, cool rage spending, fucking rage cycling, playstyle gameplay loop. I just changed it a little bit so that like it's basic. Yeah, I mean, I just think this is better. It's also just better than Unbridled Ferocity, where it's a flat % chance to proc. Obviously, this number is kind of weird. Because of a talent right below. We'll go look at that now, actually. Rampage costs 60 Rage, Carnage, and increases H by 10% for 6 seconds. Frothing Berserker, wasn't sure what else to call it. Obviously, there's that talent in the class tree already. Rampage now costs 100 Rage, deals 15% damage, and increases your damage dealt by 15% for 6 seconds. So, this changes the Rage cost of Rampage. Carnage suits itself to a playstyle where you want to play Unbridled Ferocity. Like, just fucking spam that button as much as humanly possible. Get the Valazar Berserker stuff. You get the Crushing Blow cooldown reduction, shit like that. And you get extra haste. I know a lot of people missed, like, the BFA style of Fury, where you have, like, you know, the 30% extra haste. You had, I think you were running Carnage back then, too, which made Rampage cost, like, 70 Rage or some shit, maybe 75. And all this other stuff. So I just, like, you know, doubled down on that idea. Made it cost 60 Rage, give you extra haste. You're going to be an absolute machine. And this also sort of shores up any difference in playstyle between Frenzied Enrage and Powerful Enrage. So, because obviously they're a little bit longer than Enrage duration for either of them. So any weaknesses that are caused by taking Powerful Enrage or Frenzied Enrage can be made up for by taking this talent. This also means that when you press Rampage and, you know, you get the refund from Corpses to the Pile, you either get less or more Rage depending on which talent you're taking. Obviously, you get 30 from Carnage and 50 from Frothing. So you get a little bit more Rage, a little bit less. It, you know, should scale mostly the same. Obviously, in terms of pressing Execute, Frothing Berserker or Vanilla, like without this talent, would be better because it gives you enough Rage to instantly press Execute, which, you know, you can then start immediately building to your next Rampage. Yeah. Alright. Oh, yeah, okay. Let's take a look at this real quick. A lot of this tree was made with the idea that Avatar and Torments are gone because I think those also sort of, like, okay, first of all, Avatar's a shit cooldown. The only reason it's good is because of Torments. Pretty much anyways, for Fury. It's 20% damage every minute and a half for 20 seconds. It's not very good. The idea is basically that you baked in Avatar into Recklessness by giving it the 20% haste, the extra critical strike damage, the extra duration. And removing Torments allows you to make Recklessness stronger and Odin's Fury stronger. Because Odin's Fury also sucks. The only reason it's good is because you get 2 of them every time you press buttons, right? Alright, let's go over to the left. We'll do this side of the tree first, and then we'll go back over. Actually, you know what? Let's do... We'll do this talent here, because it's obviously, like, directly correlated to Recklessness. I probably shouldn't have gone down to Recklessness first, but whatever. Alright, Anger Management. I kind of said it was gone. I kept the names, but the talent is completely different. The cooldown of Recklessness is reduced by 60 seconds, so it's a 2-minute instead of a 3-minute. And Unbridled Ferocity lasts 2 seconds longer, so it takes it from 6 to 8. Pretty straightforward. It's just consistent CDR instead of inconsistent CDR. It makes you less uptime dependent for like if you're playing with the actual cooldown, and with Unbridled Ferocity, it just means you have more time in the 50% rage gen window so that you can get the next Unbridled proc. Also, this Unbridled proc was like the idea was basically like the Wake of Ashes thing. I didn't look at rage gen numbers, but the idea here is that you basically get a Recklessness proc every 30 seconds ish. That's the goal. I don't know if the 1600 rage number accomplishes that. Because obviously, like, rage gen is what was made a lot higher by the fact that there's refunds pretty much everywhere, and you get like the Balazar Berserker shit, and you have Blood Surge as well. So there's some other stuff as well, but we'll get into that later. Yeah, so I'm not sure about this 1600 number. It might need to be higher, it might need to be lower. I'm not really sure. I haven't done the math on it. I meant to, but I didn't. Reckless Abandon. Recklessness generates 50 rage, increases your critical strike chance by an additional 20%, and increases the duration of Recklessness by 5 seconds. So this is a 25% increase on Recklessness uptime. Or, like, on the uptime, like, of the... Anyways, the duration. Sorry. And it increases critical strike chance by an additional 20%. So now instead of 30%, you're at fucking 50% crit. It is a big cooldown. 50% crit's a lot of crit. I already went on a rant about how I think conceptually, like, having you intend to waste 3,000 rage per encounter is bad. So I just removed the old Reckless Abandon. Bye-bye. Alright. I made actual good capstones here. Wahoo! Actually, I'm not sure about Rage of the Jarden, but Depths of Insanity. For the duration of Recklessness, 20% of all critical strike rating is additionally converted to critical strike damage. So, that 50% number, you take 20%, fucking turn that shit into critical strike damage. This could probably go higher. Right now, that's only, 10% critical strike damage? Which isn't a lot. It's not great. Actually, let's go ahead and just, like, bump this up to 30%. On it divisible by 3? I don't think it is. Whatever. I'll work on it. You know what? We'll, 50%. Yeah, so this is just like, this is the talent that makes Recklessness a better cooldown than it already is. It's not like directly attached to Reckless Abandon. You can still take this with like Anger Management, for example. This is just like, this is what I think Recklessness should be. Is like, you can choose to make it really, really strong. I think it should be a strong cooldown. That's why I made it 3 minutes. It should be a really, really powerful thing, especially if like, yeah, I like the idea of having strong cooldowns better than weaker cooldowns that are available frequently. Additionally, like, you can get this plus Unbridled, right? So like you can take Unbridled and Reckless Abandon and Depths, and every 1600 rage spent, you have you have a fucking 25% crit strike damage, 50% crit, 20% haste, just like giga cooldown for 6 seconds. Notably, this duration of Recklessness thing does not apply to Unbridled. That's why I have it here. Unbridled Ferocity specifically lasts 2 seconds longer. Yeah. So, like, obviously this would be broken because it, like, basically increases the duration by 50% or whatever. That would be insane. I think 30% is much more reasonable. This talent, this Rage of the Jarden, I have no idea what to do with this, man. I like the idea of it. I'm trying to fucking make it work, but yeah. Be consumed by the Rage of the Jarden, causing 5% of all damage dealt during Recklessness to be echoed as fire damage around all enemies in an 8-yard radius. So, let's say, for example, there's 5 targets, right? You are echoing 5% to all 5 targets. I guess 4 targets. No, 5 targets. So that's 25% of all damage dealt during Recklessness. And then That 5% does not get echoed. Obviously, that would have some like weird feedback loopy shit. But let's say you're cleaving 5 targets, right? All damage dealt is getting cleaved as fire damage as well. So like you're hitting 5 targets for 65% damage. 5% of the 65% on those targets is also getting cleaved around. So initially this talent, I changed this a little bit ago. We'll go up and look at it really quick. It used to just be 15% echoed damage on targets that were taking damage, and I changed it to be AoE. I'm not sure if I like that change or not. I like the idea of like, oh yeah, this does big cleave damage. It's cool. But I don't know. There's something about it that I don't like, and I haven't figured it out yet. I want to use something like this, similar to this, but maybe not this exactly. It might just go back to being like the 15% on whatever target you're hitting. So like, you know, you're cleaving for 65% damage on secondary targets. 15% of that 65 gets dealt again to that target specifically. Maybe that makes more sense. The actual 15% number, the 5% number here, was taking into account the fact that it would bypass armor because it's fire damage. Also, I think the fact that you basically had an entire fucking race of like lava wielding fire giants that are like fucking dragon hunting warriors, and like somehow we don't inherit any of that going into the next expansion is wild. So I just fucking toss it in there because I think it's cool. This talent could definitely be workshopped a little bit. But I think excluding the Jarden from the warrior kit is a mistake. You can like piss and shit over the fact that it like encroaches on Shaman's domain, but I think that argument has like zero weight. Like it's literally an entire race of giant fire wielding dragon hunters, man. I don't know what to tell you. All right, deft experience. I changed, so you'll notice this gate node, not 2 points, not 2 points, not 2 points. Also, aren't fucking stats, brother. How do we have 3 nodes that are all 2-pointers that just give stats? It is outrageous to me that is the case. They should just make them effects. They should make them 1-pointers. They should add more talent points elsewhere in the tree to shore up the fact that we now have more talent points. They've done this with every other fucking reworked spec in the game. It is bonkers to me that we still have stat nodes that are fucking gateway points in 2024, almost 2025. It's brutal. Okay, deft experience. If you are enraged, Bloodthirst extends the duration of enraged by 1 second. That's current deft. And gushing wounds on targets hit by Bloodthirst have their active duration increased by 0.5 seconds. Initially, this was 1 second, but that can be pretty insane. You could probably get 100% uptime. There's also, like, I forgot to mention this, synergy between fresh meat and cold steel hot blood. You basically have like a very, 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 very consistent way to get cold steel hot blood up on every target in a like given pack or on a boss or whatever. Because of this tripled. So it's like 15% up to 45%, and then you have cooldowns that like, you know, you can get up to 50% extra crit strike. This does devalue crit a little bit, a lot of it, but I think the value of making cold steel hot blood consistent is worth it. So yeah, there is like potential for some shenanigans beforehand. If gushing wounds were extended by 1 second per cast, and you have 2 casts, and you also have the chance to proc another one, it can get real out of hand real quick, right? You can chain together a lot of bloodthirst, get like an insane duration on gushing wounds. So yeah. Bumped it down to 0.5 seconds. At least then there's like a chance it's not 100% uptime. Obviously, again, can't play test this shit. This is just like what seems good in my head. All right. Onslaught. Current Onslaught sucks. It stinks. It's really bad. It's basically a raging blow, but it does some other stuff as well. So I completely redid it. Most of the inspiration was from this ability was drawn from Greg Orenson's old talent trees. He had what was the ability name called? I can't remember anymore. But he basically had the same thing. It was like a full single target ability. You like did a bunch. It was basically like a full single target Blade Storm. It was modeled after Draft of Souls. I just kind of stole that idea and made it into something that I liked. So, sorry. Unleash an onslaught of 6 strikes over 2 seconds on your main target, dealing 6 times 150% of attack power physical damage, ignoring armor, and causing profuse bleeding, increasing the target's damage taken by 15% for 6 seconds after. Castable while moving, cannot be cleaved, 1 minute cooldown. So, lots of text there. First and foremost, this is a 900% attack power ability. It is 900% pure damage because it ignores armor. So that already, this is like a 30% damage buff. This line right here. All right. So for those people who don't know, mobs have 30% armor, which is 30% physical damage reduction. Right. So this just ignores that. So it's doing 30% increased damage. The profuse bleeding is just like flavor text because like for most of these I tried to keep like Blizzard jargon and like the flavor that they usually put in talents in there. So yeah, I also notably increases damage taken by 15% for 6 seconds afterwards. All right, so you're not putting this debuff on the first cast. After the full 2 seconds is done, then it gets to 15% damage debuff, so that you're not like triple dipping, like getting some fucking crazy damage. I'm not sure if this should be hasted or not. My intention is probably not. It's really strong. I think compressing it anymore is probably a bad idea. And castable while moving. This is a big issue that people have with they had with Fearlath, and they currently have with Demolish. You can't move. I think that's stupid. It's really dumb. You should just let people move. So when I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, probably should just put that in there. And 1 minute cooldown. I want this to be available like relatively frequently. This is like the pure single target fight, or like fight with a prio target that needs to die really fucking fast. All right. So like you should have this pretty much every time something like that spawns. Or like, for pure single target fights, having stuff every 1 minute, that's just sick. Also, I know the 45-second 1.5 minute cooldown is like a cool niche. People like it. I personally am sick and tired of having absolutely zero synergy with stuff like PI and with stuff like AUG. It really pisses me off that they intentionally design classes with the intent that they cannot synergize well with other classes. So yeah, I just put everything. This is like a trend. You're gonna notice everything is on a normalized cooldown cadence. So like 1 minute, 2 minute, and 3 minute. There's no like 0.5s or anything like that. There's no variable CDR. There's no CDR that reduces it to a point that's weird, like 1.5 minutes or 45 seconds or 30 seconds. It's all 1 minute. All right, let's go to the capstone here. Tenderize increases the duration of the onslaught debuff by 2 seconds per active bleed on the target. Or Siegebreaker, the damage taken debuff applied by onslaught is increased by 5% per active bleed on the target. So this is like, do you want? This plays into what I was saying before, right? Do you either want pure sustained damage or to blow up a prio target, right? In theory, this would be the better option for sustained single target, something like Kai'Vezir or Rashok or Magmarax, Sikrin, those types of fights where it's just like do as much damage as consistently as possible for the entire fight duration, right? And Siegebreaker this is calling back to the Siegebreaker talent, where it's like you basically Fury Colossal Smash, right? So instead of having it be increased duration, you have like a highly focused fucking kill this enemy right now debuff, right? So this is also, I should mention, I think the maximum for this is double duration. So it goes from 6 seconds to 12 seconds. I'm pretty sure, right? Because you have Gushing Wound, you have Trauma, and then you have one other bleed from Odin's Fury, right? So if you like line everything up, you have 3 all the time. So max duration of 12 seconds. Similarly, you have a max you basically double the damage taken debuff to 30% instead of 15. I thought that was a pretty fair number, 6 seconds duration, 30% damage buff, 1 minute cooldown. Seems pretty good to me. Seems like reasonable. Most of the like unreasonableness of this cooldown comes from the fact that it's 900% AP pure damage. That's kind of insane. Over 2 seconds as well. So like pretty much any proud target that comes out, you're gonna fucking crush it, right? Like imagine current example, Heroic Silken Court, right? Pretty much like every damage amp window, you're just gonna absolutely fucking pump the boss. Absolutely pump it. I think it's on like 45 second and 1 minute cadences, or 45 second and 1.5 minute cadence. But you understand my meaning, right? Like something like that. Or like for example on like Mythic Ansarek, I guess Heroic Ansarek too. Like the shield ads on the in P2 on the second platform that need to die. You can just absolutely like turbo fuck the ad like instantly. So yeah, I thought this was like pretty cool. I like the idea of having like targeted focused damage. I think the fact that this is pure single target means that you can be a lot more lenient with the amount of power that you put into it because it can't be cleaved, right? So you're not worried about like insane scaling in AoE, but I also think it's powerful enough that on a fight like Ansarek, for example, you would take this anyway, even though the fight has a heavy AoE requirement, because it is just that good at doing what it does. And I think the fact that it can't be cleaved allows it to be that strong. And I think that creates like really interesting design opportunities. Yeah. So this was also a pretty cool one. I had a lot of fun like designing this and thinking about the numbers and how to make it feel cool and fit with Fury. Bladestorm or Ravager, 1 minute cooldown each. That was the only changes there. Basically just like fit in line with everything else. Unhinged, unchanged, the exact same. The intention here, fuck, Storm of Steel. That talent is dog shit. Stink ass. Very bad. And I've noticed people like kind of miss Merciless Bone Grinder. So the intention here was to basically be like single target or AoE. So you have Unhinged or Merciless Bone Grinder. After casting Ravager or Bladestorm, your next 3 Whirlwinds do 150% increased damage, or your next 3 Thunderclaps deal 50% increased damage. The intention here was to make the overall value higher than that of Wrecking Ball. Because why would you take this if Wrecking Ball is just better? Worth noting that this is also insanely consistent because it's every 1 minute. I capped it at your next 3 casts because I do not like the playstyle that we had in Shadowlands where you press Bladestorm and then you slam the fuck out of Whirlwind for like the next 8 seconds and then you like that's it. I think that's really stupid. So this I think the next like number of like Whirlwind casts and Thunderclap casts, I think that was Silmarilyn's idea. I went through a lot of this on stream, like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago now, and had some people yap at me and tell me their grievances with certain stuff. Adding Merciless Bone Grinder at all was Silmarilyn's idea, but I didn't want to add it if I knew that there's just going to be spamming, so yeah, we talked about it a little bit. This is the conclusion that we arrived at. The damage numbers were mostly mine to figure out, I think. I can't really remember. This gushing wound thing was, who was it? I think it was Mel. Yeah, that sounds right. In any case, carrying on, they were into like the last set of nodes, and we're just at about an hour. So that's pretty good, I think. I was expecting this to be longer. Critical thinking. Raging blow and crushing blow have 10% increased critical strike chance. Critical strikes generating 4 additional rage. So obviously there's a lot of like crit generating rage synergy here. Because again, my intention is to like give Fury some more, like an extra layer of synergies between crits and shit. Odin's Fury. Odin's Fury now enrages you and grants 2/4 stacks of the Whirlwind buff, depending on if you have Improve Whirlwind or Meat Cleaver talented. It gives 2 at default if you don't have either of them talented. 1 minute cooldown, damage increased by 50%. Damage increased by 50%, obviously because torments don't exist. 1 minute cooldown, 15 seconds longer than it is currently. And I just baked in Titanic Rage, because there is no way that that should be a talent. The fact that that is a talent is disgusting to me. So, alright. Death and Glory. This is the gold trait from the Broken Shore, like, artifact knowledge shit, whatever, from Legion. Odin's Fury is empowered by Odin and Helia. Okay, back then, it was one or the other. I think it should just be both. So, because having it be like split is cringe and like RNG. So Odin's Fury is empowered by Odin and Helia, dealing an additional 200% of attack power and Shadow Flame damage over 4 seconds, and healing you for 20% of all damage dealt by Odin's Fury. So back then, it was like Odin's Fury is empowered by either Odin or Helia, and it dealt. It was still this number, but it was instantly. It wasn't over like duration. And it was either fire or shadow. And oh, is that correct actually? I can't remember. But basically one was yeah. So the Odin generated 20 rage, and the Helia healed you for 100% of the damage dealt. So I took a little bit of both. I made it damage over time so that there isn't like massive burst damage issues. And I gave you a little bit of the leech, just because I think the leech is cool, and there is burst damage issues. At least you're leeching for some of the damage you dealt. And Bloodthirsty Rage. Odin's Fury causes your next 3 Bloodthirst to deal 50% increased damage to your primary target, I should add, and have 100% increased critical strike chance. This is the Amir Drasil 4 set. 2 set, right? Yeah, 2 set. I didn't add the CDR because I think RNG, like, I wanted to, I thought about it, but I ended up not going with it. There is like, I think at one point this had 2 choice nodes. It was these 2, and then Odin's Champion, and it was also the CDR talent, or the CDR tier set. It was like the Bloodthirst critical strikes reduce the cooldown of Odin's Fury by 2.5 seconds or whatever. But I decided that because everything else was static cooldowns, this is a minute, you know, it just didn't make sense to have it be variable anymore. So I nuked that, and I nuked the other set of CDR because Odin's Champion is just CDR as well. And I went with these 2. This is pretty straightforward, right? It just makes your Bloodthirst do big damn whenever you press Odin's Fury. This also obviously synergizes with Tenderize and Siegebreaker over here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's the extra bleed. It's like the last bleed. Yeah, not much synergy going on here. It's just like your stuff does more damage. Yeah, that's about it. Again, if you want to, I'll leave a link in the description if you want to just take a look at it for yourself instead of listening to me yap and cough and fucking, you know, take deep breaths for an hour. Listen to my chair squeak. Otherwise, that's pretty much all I got. If there are any like significant changes, maybe I'll update this. I don't know. I'll probably maybe make another video whenever we get 11.1 details, or whenever 11.1 comes out. If I don't know if there's any cool shit on 11.1 that like may or may not have shown up in here or some shit, then I'll update it and look at it, see what's similar. But I'm not expecting any of this, literally any of it, to wind up in an actual Fury design, even though it would be sick if it did, because this is a lot of change, and it's a lot of big change, and it's a lot of big change from someone who doesn't know anything about design. So yeah, thanks for watching. I intended to make this video like I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, but I didn't. But I'm making it now, so please forgive me. GG's, good night.